I see a lot of my colleagues being like, I launched this many campaigns. I sent this many emails, and like, we have to, those are to me a little bit of vanity metrics. And so how do we deepen the metric around comprehension and relevance? So my journey in communications really started with working in marketing and sort of like nonprofit for marketing. And so in my career, I've always sort of been a hub for the details and the happenings in whatever company I was part of. So moved from marketing and nonprofit marketing to working in tech. I worked for an digital advertising company for a long time, worked for a Fortune 500 company, and was lucky enough to become the voice of my specific business unit. So, once a week, I would collate all of the details that were applicable to the audience in my business unit. And I was able to write for lack of a better word, a newsletter. But it really became like the single source of truth for thousands of people. And it was completely my voice and was really, really fun to write. From there, I moved into more of like a revenue and an enablement role. And so I really believe that good communication can help people do the job that they are uniquely qualified to do. And so what I mean by that is, if you as a recipient of a communication understand the thing that you need to be able to do, whether it's fill out a form, this is the action you need to take. If it's very clear on how to do that, then you can better do your job. So I went from sort of like revenue and helping that number back to communications, because I noticed, especially with the rise of so many communication tools and the fact that we are attached to our phones and we have notifications coming in from all directions, that my team and people that I knew really were unfocused and like exhausted. And so I saw this problem as sort of like a cognitive problem, and one that was preventing people from doing their best work. And so at my current company, Guru, I shifted into an internal communications role to help put some guardrails, standards, boundaries around how, when, why, where we communicate, to take some of that decision-making and sort of like low-grade task completion off the table for employees so they can do what they are uniquely qualified to do. I think that my experience being sort of like on the revenue side and, hey, how is our business doing? How are we tracking week over week? Definitely informs how I think about internal communication. I feel like sometimes internal communication is thought of as just like this soft, nice to have. And you need to have it, right? Like, especially if your employees are distributed in a pandemic, you need to have something that's going to cut be the signal through the noise. So in how I came to being so data driven, I think it's because I'm connected to like the business side of things. And then, just asking a lot of questions of tactics and techniques. For example, is the number of emails I send an indicator of the comprehension of my employees? Probably not, right? Like, just tracking volume as a data point is not, doesn't give us a lot of information. It's one dimension of information. And that's where the Guru tool, and this is not, an ad for Guru, but that's where the Guru tool gives you a little more optionality, so you can understand if someone has taken the action you've intended, and if they've read it, when they've read it. And so that sort of comprehension piece is something that I really wanted to explore throughout my career, because it doesn't matter if they receive it, are they taking the action? Are they doing the thing? Guru is a knowledge management product. So that means it's a single source of truth where folks are documenting our customers like Zoom and Shopify and Spotify are, having a reference documentation, everything from the company Wi-Fi to the latest pitch deck in the knowledge management system of Guru. So with that, Guru uses Guru for our own internal communications. So we send, and I'm going to stick with this newsletter example, which I think a lot of comms, internal communications folks and external communication folks, usually everybody has one of those. So that's why I'll stick with this one. We have a newsletter that we used to send on a Tuesday, and it would involve a lot of different content creators. So we pull in this person for this and this person for that. And we weren't getting as much sort of engagement and readership as we wanted. We track engagement and readership in these newsletters via the Guru product. We began sending it via one person on a no meeting Wednesday. So we have a ritual here. We have no internal meetings on Wednesdays. And the idea there was that we have ritualized this newsletter with its cadence, its format, its senders. It comes on this day when people theoretically are going to have a bit more time to digest, because I'm sure you hear this in the market too. There's so much information, there's so much content. People want to consume it, but we don't have enough time, right, to prioritize it. So that we saw about a 30% increase in readership in just getting that ritual stood up. So that's one example. So I would do what, this is specific to the tool. We, from the tooling perspective, are looking at the number of employees who clicked the metric, I read it. But I can see, okay, 85% of the organization has read this important update. So it's that metric. Another metric that, I'm measured on, which isn't related to a tool, is employee net promoter score. So in a lot of organizations, there's different ways that folks are figuring out how to measure employee happiness and satisfaction. And that pretty quantitative survey we send to employees, and a lot of communication commentary, and a lot about the way in which we communicate is also captured in that survey. So there's a couple different things at play. One is the metrics we're able to understand via the tools that we have, which is the read rate, the unique views on a piece of documentation, the number of questions actually that are asked about it, which isn't a perfect metric, because are the questions that are asked about a specific thing because they're deepening the conversation or because something wasn't clear. So kind of playing with that one. The sort of, we use a tool that we will send our employees a synopsis of a document with a video. And that tool allows you, it's called Loom, L-O-O-M. That tool allows you to watch the completion rate of the update of your employees or whoever you're sending to. Now, again, that is one dimension. I could play the video and go and make a sandwich and not comprehend it. So what we are playing around with now from a product perspective is how to track context, awareness, and relevance when sending an update. Guru, my own tool, because we communicate and are trying to be the best stewards of our own product, that one's super important. I think Loom is definitely helpful. It's just another dimension, and that's the video tool. I also think that from a crisis communication standpoint, there's an opportunity for analytics to be better joined and connected to internal and external communication. So, we're seeing companies and employees be activists in a way that was not true 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so, how do we get out? How do employers put out messaging to employees that is going to help them do their jobs and keep them in a space of belonging and connection so they can show up at work in a real way versus ignore like the events of the world? So there's some sort of relevance to how crisis communication is handled. So my first reaction is that there's new space for different types of communicators in a way that there wasn't 5 years ago because of the shift in the market. And so your communication journey, your journey as a communicator in your career doesn't have to look like this linear path of I'm going to be a junior internal communications person, I'm going to be a director, right? Like the world of internal and external communications also is shifting. So you could create whatever your definition of communications is. You could create that path different from folks in the past. That's probably like one thing. The advice I'll give to anyone, and then I have to give to myself as well, is set up a coffee once a week, once a month, virtual or not, with someone whose job you're interested in. Not that you want to take the job or you want to work at the company, but find out about other people's paths so you can develop your own. And the third thing, sort of a catchphrase of mine, is clarity is kindness. So as clear as you can be about the ask you're making of someone, it's like, hey, I want to learn from you. You're a professional. That like eases the tension. Like being explicit about stuff is super helpful.